Closer, closer, closer.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to the I.Am.Woman podcast with your host, Taylor A. Williams, myself. I have a special guest today, Miss Deborah M. Pratt. I will introduce her, but I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on to the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling outstanding. Thank you very
Amazing.
much.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that. Thank you. So I'll let you know a little bit about her. So she is an award-winning American director, writer, producer, singer, dancer, and actress. She has a degree in psychology and theater. Deborah's talent was discovered through a nationwide search, and she quickly made her mark in Hollywood. Her career highlights include co-creating, executive producing, and head writing the iconic series Quantum Leap for NBC, as well as working on other notable TV shows and selling feature scripts to major studios. In addition to her achievements in the entertainment industry, Deborah is a published novelist and pioneer in transmedia entertainment. Again, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. So I would love to dive into the world of Miss Pratt. So I know you're a multifaceted woman because your journey from being a high school teacher, high school theater enthusiast, to becoming a multi-talented director, novelist, producer, singer, dancer, I'm trying to say it all in one breath, and actress is truly inspiring. How did your early experiences in theater shape your career path, and what motivated you to pursue such a diverse range of creative pursuits?
Well, that's a long, big question.
It is.
I think I started in theater itself. I think I started in high school, and we were auditioning for, I went to an all-girls high school, the Academy of Our Lady, and so great way to meet guys was like to go to the all-boys high school and be in their plays.
Oh, okay.
And so I went to audition and got the lead.
Wow.
And it kind of surprised me too. And we were doing Tea House of the August Moon, and it was an amazing experience to suddenly have the weight of that lead on me.
Right.
Then that summer, I went to a junior college for some classes, and I thought, I'm going to audition for the play there, and I got the lead.
Wow.
And this time we were doing Murad Saad, and I was playing Charlotte Corday, and I'm going, I kind of like this.
Yes. It's kind of natural.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up going to college at Webster University,
Right.
and my parents would not hear of me going into the theater department. So what I did was I majored in psychology. They were happy with that. And then I actually worked. My work study was at the theater.
Oh, nice.
And there weren't very many women of color there, like none. No, maybe one other. And so whenever there was an audition and there was something for women of color, I auditioned for it. But they also had a repertory company. So you got to do professional repertory shows. And then I went back and said, I want to start the conservatory. So I'll finish my degree in psychology, and then I'll go back and I'll start the conservatory, which I did. Okay. And then I wrote a play, and then I directed a play. And then I got to do Shakespeare, and I played Juliet for one of the student productions. And I said, I really love this. And in the meantime, I found out I could sing. And I was taking dance classes, and I found out I could dance. So it was like all these discoveries that I was making that I think made it very exciting for me. So when I got out of school, I actually graduated a year early. I didn't finish the conservatory program. And my parents said, you can take a year off. So I went back to Chicago, and I taught for a little bit in the summer in Cabrini Green, which was a really hard, inner city ghetto, is what it was. Yeah. And the first time I remember the children had never been out of their homes, most of them. And so every day I would like tell them stories and make up stories for them. And every now and then there would be shooting, and we'd have to like go lay down on the floor, and I would make up stories about, you know, why we were laying down on the floor and what this adventure was about. And I found that I really loved storytelling as well. Wow. So I said to my parents, I really want to try show business. And they just looked at me like it was crazy. My father was a banker. My mother had a degree in psychology. My sister was off in medical school. You know, it was a whole other conversation. They said, okay, you can have a year to figure it out. And I auditioned for 2 plays. I got in both of them. These are off-Broadway. And I chose a play called Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, because I got to understudy all the women. And I got to sing, and I got to dance. And my mom and dad finally came to see me perform. And my parents went, oh, wow, you're talented. So the next morning, my mom calls me and says, they're auditioning for this Hollywood television show. And they're doing a nationwide search. You should go. And I went, I have a job. I just started this job. And she said, well, you wanted to do TV. And I figured, oh, well, the worst that can happen is I get to find out what it's like to audition for NBC. Interestingly enough, the same network I work for today.
It all comes full circle.
And when I got there, there were 500 women.
Wow.
And by 5 o'clock that night, it was me and one other girl. And I'm sitting there, and I have curtain. I got to go. You know, I've been sweating and dancing and singing and the whole 9 yards. And I raise my hand, excuse me, and the director and the choreographer, the musical director and the producer is all there. And I said, this has been really wonderful, but I have a job and I have a show that I have to do, and the curtain is going to be soon. And so thank you very much. And the guy comes up to me and says, do you understand what I'm offering you? And I said, you haven't offered me anything, but you have my information. And I don't know, can I curse on this show?
Yes.
So
Please do.
He says, where'd you get that fuck you attitude?
Ooh.
And being a girl from Chicago, I said, who the fuck are you? I have a job. And he says, I'm going to bring you to Hollywood, and I'm going to break you. And I said, bring it on. I look forward to it. And I walked out. And they sent me a ticket to Hollywood, and the next thing I knew, I was on the Dean Martin show, and I was dancing with Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor, and just amazing, you know, that old Hollywood group of the time, which made it really cool, because I'd seen them, you know, mostly on TV, but.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And the story wasn't just kind of like, I'm going to do this and then do this and do this. It all kind of just flowed, and here you are. But yeah, it's just a natural flow.
It was. You know, it was one of those things that was kind of meant to be.
Yes.
And so I've been in Hollywood ever since. And I've written a couple of albums with people and sang and played Vegas and toured. And then started doing television. And I was really disappointed in the roles for women of color. Especially because I was not black enough for blaxploitation. But I always worked. And then I got on a show called Airwolf and said, I was actually supposed to be killed off in the pilot, but I guess I was really good. So they kept me, and I said, I want to write an episode. And everybody looked at me like, oh, is that so sweet? And so I actually wrote it. And they went, okay, we're going to give you notes. So I have to tell you, okay, so before I did that, I have to say really what started my writing in Hollywood. I did a movie called Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. And they fired the director because he was too shy to speak to the actors, and they brought in a new director. They threw out the script, and I had this great part, me and the Earth Girls, and suddenly we had nothing at all. And we're out in the middle of Moab, Utah desert, and the pages are coming out, and we are really just props, if anything.
gosh.
So I snuck into the writer's room and I wrote a 7-page scene for us.
Wow.
And I gave it to Ivan Reitman. And he went, really? And so the only words that we say, they took that 7-page scene down to like 7 lines. But it gave me the impetus to be fearless about
Yes, I was just going to say, like, fearless.
Writing, yeah.
Just taking that risk and that jump.
exactly. Because if you don't do it,
Exactly.
sometimes it just doesn't happen.
You never know.
So that when I got back and I got Airwolf, and I became a regular, reoccur on the show, I started, I said, I want to write. And then I got on Magnum PI and I wrote 2 episodes there. And so it really kind of led me into it. And then the executive producer said, you're good at this. Do you want to learn how to produce?
Wow.
Yeah.
Just getting the full package.
Yeah, but and I think the various aspects of my career, being in front of the camera,
Right.
being a singer, so I knew how to go into a mix room when I was producing and mix a show, because I knew what it took. It brought my ears up. As far as writing dialogue, I knew as an actor what was good to say and easy to say and made more sense when you were in a dialogue with somebody, how to make those transitions in and those transitions out of the scene. So I think each of the events of my career led me to producing and then directing.
I love that. It's so holistic. I mean, you get a little bit of everything in the background. That's great. Wow. So, Quantum Leap holds a special place in the hearts of many viewers. Can you share some behind the scenes stories about your experiences as the co-creator, executive producer, and head writer for the show? What were some of the challenges and joys of bringing such an iconic series to life?
Quantum Leap, I was reading a book by Stephen Hawking called Short History of Time. And it was heavy physics. But I'm a nerd all the way. I love sci-fi since I was young. And I came across this quote from Einstein, who said, time and space is limited. And that means that in time travel, a person can't just appear here on the couch, because time and space is limited. And we're filling this space, and you're filling that space. So they would have to knock us out. And I went, oh my God, that's never been done, but it's scientifically backed by freaking Einstein. So I said, what if someone traveled through time to put things right that once went wrong, and they got to be the person that they leapt into? They had a whole life and existence and history that they had to figure out who they were. And then my co-creator said, and they don't remember everything. So they remember part of what that person did and what their abilities were, but they forget parts of their life. And what it did was it set an incredible challenge. And then because we couldn't afford it, we traveled only within his lifetime, which was like from the 50s to the present. Once or twice we went into the future, but we just didn't have the money. And we walked around on the back lot and went, okay, we can do a story here. We made up stories based on what we had available on the back lot of Universal. So we shot all over the back lot, which was fun and incredible. But it was a hell of a hard show, because every week we had to do a period movie with costumes, with locations, with cars, with... and so it really brought in my love of research, in the sense that you really got to research a period and what was happening at that time. And so when we went in to pitch it to Brandon Tartikoff, we told him the story, and he looked and he went, okay, there's something here, but it's so different. There's like nothing like it on television. And he said, I have to think about it. He said, I'll call you. So he went away, and like a few days later, he called and said, "Can you come back in?" And he said probably the wisest thing I've ever heard in my life. He said, "Pitch it to me like I'm 6 years old." And I went, "Okay." And then he said, "Now pitch it to me like I'm 86 years old." And being able to modify the storytelling made it, between those age brackets, made it universal.
Yes.
Very universal storytelling. So that I think that's why the show resonates with so many people, because it plays on that level with so many people. And we moved 6 times in 5 years.
Wow.
Because they couldn't find anybody to put us with, because we were so unique. Now, and when the show went off, there was like 85 sci-fi time travel shows, to the day. And then now the show has finally come back.
Yes.
And it's got a lot more money, but it also has standing sets. So it's been reinvented to the point where you really got to see headquarters. And you really got to meet the people who, were driving his leaps and protecting him as best he could. I got to play the computer Ziggy, so that was my voice. And then I got to do the opening monologue, which I wrote. It's a fun show. It's still a fun show. I directed an episode called Family Style.
Yes.
In the first season.
To that, yes.
Oh, okay. I don't want to say anything.
No. Continue. I definitely want to dig into that one.
But it's really been fun. And what I love about this is I can't tell you how many years I tried to bring diversity to Hollywood. And so I was the first one to want to write Sam leaping into a black man.
Yes.
In civil rights, pre-civil rights South. And everybody at Universal said, no, it's too soon. We can't do that till year 3. We've literally done 3 shows, and this is my 4th show. And I said, you're wrong. This show can take you into someone's shoes, into someone's life.
Exactly.
And Brandon Tartikoff, who was president of the network, said, she's right. So I wrote him as this black man in the South experiencing what it's like to be a white man perceived as a black man, and what that racism felt like to him, and how he had to interpret it. And the letters came in like crazy. Back then, people wrote letters. And then I wrote him as a woman for the first time, and really got into women's issues and in the 60s, and chauvinism, all the issues that didn't get talked about on TV at the time. And I think that's one of the reasons that the show really resonated with such a wide universal audience.
Yeah. Going into each of those eras, I was going to say, like you said, you wrote the black man and also the women's rights. I was going to say, what was the feedback with that? Because I know you said you got letters, but was it good feedback? Was it...
For the most part, it was, the press loved it. But I'll tell you an amazing story. Well, let me tell you one amazing story. Okay, so we did the show, and we got a letter from a woman who taught 2nd graders. So she brought in the DVD, and she played it where he first walks in at the beginning of the show, where he leaps in, and he realizes that he's hungry. And he's standing in the doorway of a diner. And he doesn't realize he's black yet. And so he goes and he sits down, and she stops it. And she says to these kids, what do you think happens next? And they said, well, he got lunch and, And she said, well, let's see what happens next. So she pushed it in, and he sat down, and everybody in the diner looked at him like he was out of his mind, because he's a black man sitting at a counter. Right. And then they said, you can't stay here, you have to get out, and they throw him out. And she stopped it again, and the kids went, well, why would they do that? And so it was this amazing teachable moment to kids who had never experienced it. And and never knew that it happened. It was a great way to tell a moment in history so that kids could have a visceral feeling about it.
Yes.
I wrote another show about the Watts riots where he leapt into a black man who was in a relationship with a white woman. They wouldn't play it in the South.
Wow.
Yeah. They took it off the air. Now, he's a white guy
Right.
on camera with a white woman. The only time you can see that he's black is when he looks in a mirror and sees his reflection. And yet, because of that, they would not air it in the South. But it made the conversation happen. And to me, that was what was important. It's a conversation that still needs to keep happening. But I think that, you know, in some areas, like interracial relationships, we've got better. But there are a lot of people who don't think they should be.
Still to this day.
Still to this day.
Yeah. That just goes to show you that we're not that far removed. Although it may seem like years and years ago, it's still very much present. So.
Yeah, there are a lot of laws that need to be taken off the books that have been there since the 1800s when the slave catchers, those laws were set in place and they're still on the books. That's why the lynch laws are still on the books.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion, why a lot of police get away with killing blacks the way they kill them because of those early... I mean, truthfully, the slavers who went out to catch them became the police. So until those laws are changed, I don't know how we evolve.
Right.
And a show like Quantum is a great example. I mean, we're, in the new series we have the first South Korean #1 ever in the history of Hollywood.
Wow.
And,
That's history.
And we have Ernie Hudson. I mean, there you go.
Right.
And we have a Mason Alexander Park, who is, non-binary, and they are a first as well. And we have a second half Chinese, half Korean woman in the cast. So it's a very diverse cast.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm very proud of that.
You should be. I love it. Okay, so congratulations on the successful airing of Family Style episode of Quantum Leap. So I'm just eager to hear the impact it had on the audience, the conversations it opened up. Can you share some insights into the episode's message and how it resonated with the viewers?
The story was an Indian family who had immigrated over to the United States. They were cooks, and they opened an Indian restaurant. And the father died. And so Ben leaps into one of the daughters. And the second daughter wants to be a chef. And the mother, in honor of the husband, doesn't want to change anything. And so then there's a twist that I don't want to give it all away if you haven't seen the show. If you haven't seen the show.
Right.
She finally agrees to let the daughter change the menu and cook something new and bring something. And at the last minute, she won't let it happen. So Ben has got to get in between this mother and daughter and show the mother the fact that her daughter's growing up and she has dreams and that she can't hold her to where she is and she can't hold the memory of her husband because it's stopping the progress of their success. And I won't tell you all the twists and turns. You have to watch the show. But in the end, it was an incredibly moving awakening for the mother. And the love of family, the love of food, what they went through, for the ending sequence, and how our hero figured out a way to save the day with his team at headquarters. But it taught me this love of Indian food.
Yes, I love Indian food.
And it was written by an amazing, Adritha wrote it, and she's East Indian. We have a non-binary writer who just won a nomination for the Hollywood Critics' Choice Awards for a trans story that she wrote.
Wow.
where Ben leaps into the father of a young trans girl that her school doesn't want her to play on the women's team.
Okay. Wow.
And what we try to do on Quantum Leap is tell both sides of the story
I like that.
and let you figure out which side of that line you stand on.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so how did your direction bring the theme of food and family together to create a memorable and meaningful viewing experience?
Well, okay. I'm not a foodie per se, but I
Okay.
love The Bear. I don't know if you've watched The Bear.
The Bear, no.
Oh my gosh, it's such an excellent
now
show.
I need to go see it.
Yeah, it's just really, it's on Netflix. It's a really wonderful
Okay.
show. And it's about all those great cooking shots, you know, chopping and fire and, you know, how intense it is in a kitchen.
Right.
The rules and the way things run has a huge level of almost a military kind of respect. But I'm sitting there in this tiny kitchen that I had to shoot in, climbing up on counters saying, okay, let's get the camera on the top.
Right.
And I my favorite scene was I had this one scene that I wanted to bring humor to it because there are 4 qualities to a quantum leap that make them quantum leap. One is history, one is humor, one is heart, and the other is history. And if you can get all those things in, you really have a true quantum leap. And so I created what's called a oneer, which is everybody had to, like on stage, and then camera was the interim character that wove them all together. And for me, it was really about what it's like to be in that kitchen and those cramped quarters and what it's like to have all those hot pots
Right.
all
The
around you.
steam,
The steam.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we had boiling water all over the place to create the steam in the kitchen.
wow.
This is our first day of shooting, and we're there, and we're about to do a shot, and all of a sudden, the lights that we've put up start falling off the ceilings because the steam melted the gaffer's tape that was holding them.
No!
Yeah, so we had to
probably a
rethink
big
the
cleanup.
steam. Yeah,
Wow. Oh my gosh.
but it was
Nobody
fun,
got hurt
fun.
though.
No, nobody got hurt.
Okay, good.
I'm not acting as much as I used to. I'm a huge advocate. You know, every now and then somebody will say, "Come on, be in my movie." Maybe I will. And then I think that my work at the WGA, I sat on the board of directors. Right now on the DGA, I am. I think August 5th we have the national convention, and I'm a delegate for that. I try to work with young writers and young directors to talk to them. I think women especially don't have the kind of circle that men do. When you look at what was happening when Spielberg and Lucas, Scorsese, they had a real rat pack, and they relied on each other. And I think I wanted, you know, and I've tried twice to create that inner circle where we can say, hey, read my script, or hey, look at this cut,
Right.
and let's talk about what works, what doesn't work. And I think women need to be more, you know, giving in that way. I find that more and more there are women in yes positions in the studios and in the networks. For so long there was one in the room,
Right.
and they were, you know, it was a battle to hold your position. So now the fact that we only need money, and if women are the majority in the world and have enough money, if they would come and bring that money to the table for women's stories and women's projects. You know, you look at what Barbie just did at the box office is incredible.
Incredible.
But if you look at, and I haven't seen it, I apologize. I tried to
haven't either.
see it. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get a ticket. The fact that it's about feminism, that in Barbie Land there is a woman president and all the Supreme Court are women. So I know it made a lot of the Republicans angry because they really thought Ken was underrepresented.
I know, right?
But I mean, here's a doll with
Ken.
He's just Ken. So it's really about how can I, and a lot of times I will, talk with women and meet with them and have coffee with them and talk about their projects and what they can do. And I just had a lunch yesterday with a friend who is looking to bring a project to the United States from London. And I sat there and said, all right, here's the best way to present this project. Who do you want it? Where do you want it to live? Right. So let me help you think about a pathway to get there. And if I can do that for a young director, a young writer, a young actor, I've done it all. So I can actually bring truth to
Literally, you can give any type of advice. Any position, actor, producer, writer. I mean, it's all there. I love that. So, as a fiction writer, how do you perceive the impact of AI on our society and culture in the present time, and how has it influenced or inspired your work as an artist?
Well, how it inspired my work was I've been touting AI for a very long time and that it's coming. The Vision Quest, and now my new graphic novel and series Warrior One really deals with the fact of the sentient mind of AI and what it will become, because we're this close. And what will that mean to us? And I think right now what the WGA, what SAG, the DGA are all fighting for is who has rights to this artificial intelligence.
Right.
Well, if a small group of people own all the rights, they will own everything. So the inequity that would come from that would destroy everything that we know. Forget them coming to get us, which is what's in my books. The fact that we would have no purpose. And yet, if we can use AI as a tool
to our advantage,
but there's an equality across it, we could all become incredibly successful because that's shared knowledge, not just stolen knowledge, which is what they want to do right now. They want to, digitize you so that you don't
use me in perpetuity.
That's right. That's exactly right. And they're doing it illegally now, making people sign contracts to say, oh, we've digitized you so we can use you for the rest of your life. And they didn't know what they were signing because it's all so new. The laws haven't been passed, the moral behind it. And then the question is, what will the AI do when they realize what we're about? Which is what I wrote in my books, in the sense that they look at our greed, they look at our selfishness, they look at our racism, they look at all the negative stuff that is holding us back as a society, as a species. We're on the same. There have been 5 major extinctions on this planet. There can be one more. The planet will be fine. We just have to dust off, the human virus. But if AI comes in, we don't know what they're capable of.
Right.
And they're now exponentially advancing in a way that I don't know when we will know. Because they'll know first.
Right. They already know, I'm sure.
And I say, don't be afraid. Just make sure that we are all protected in this new evolution of knowledge. And that we all have equality in it.
Right.
There's equity in it. So that we can all benefit from it. Because maybe that will be the turning point that levels the playing field. You do not have to have $1 trillion. You cannot spend it in a lifetime. There should be caps on salaries of these people that make $79,000 a day and don't want to pay somebody.
The numbers are incredible. It's just like, wow.
Yeah. And that's got to change.
It does.
And if we don't change it, they will.
Well, let's start with us first. We can. I think they've done enough right now. Okay, so what's next for the Deborah Pratt? Any upcoming projects? Any future plans to direct your own show?
As it stands right now, I have a new graphic novel coming out, hopefully in the next couple of months, called Warrior One.
Yes.
That I'm looking to create into a transmedia project of an interactive video game. So I put a team together for that because I want you to live in the world and then do a series. And then that will lead into my metaverse of the Vision Quest. I'm also looking, I wrote the play of Joseph Boulogne. I'm looking to put that up probably in the West End in London. We're raising the financing for that right now. And season 2 of Quantum Leap coming back. Please tune in.
Yes,
Join
definitely.
us. We'll be back on October 4th.
Okay.
And come to thevisionquest.com, come to warrioroneworld.com.
Okay.
Learn about these projects, come become part of us.
Yes.
And I have so many things that I want to do and stories that I want to tell. There's a 5th book in the Vision Quest. There's a prequel to the Vision Quest that takes place on the risen continent of Atlantia when blacks ruled the world.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Pre-Egyptian.
Oh, wow.
We influenced everyone. I think that's why they say, ain't never going to happen again.
Once they caught wind of that, yes.
Anyway, so those are the stories I want to tell. I want to change television. I think the next generation of entertainment is on the crest.
For sure. Okay, so before we wrap up, I'd just like to ask 3 pieces of advice that you would give to any aspiring writers, creatives, artists, I mean, you name it, or just to women in general.
To women in general, be kind to yourself. And believe in yourself. I think it's important also to be fearless. I tell my kids, when you want to do something and you're afraid to do it, to pick up the phone to call somebody, cold call somebody that you want to know, to make a difference, to get your project out there, to get your face in front of them, pick up the phone. I find the bigger the person is, the nicer they are. But if you don't pick up the phone, if you pick up the phone, you got a 50-50 chance of getting a yes or a no.
Right.
If you don't pick up the phone, you got 0. And the worst that can happen is someone says no. And then your attitude has to be, wrong person, next. Don't let it hold you back. And support each other. I think women especially have got to learn to lift each other up.
Yes.
Because the way the world has been run right now, we need this energy. And we need it together. And once we unify, which is, I think, another one of my big themes as a species, but also as women, we can do anything.
We can. Together. Yes. I know so many people want to be individuals and this and that, but it's really community and together that will really withstand, the test of time.
It'll make the changes that we need to make.
For sure.
You're not alone.
Yes. Oh, I love to hear that. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for tuning into I Am Woman. I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. You can tune in on all platforms, and please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.